All right. So this is going to be pretty much our last one um, for COVID.
Oh,
For COVID, yeah. I think it will be our last proper presentation when it comes to
Yay!
yeah
yes, that's
training
right.
and
Yeah,
I know for the right reasons as well. So
yeah.
I think it's really good that we can kind of end it on transitioning back to some level of normality as the state starts to open up or as the country the country starts to open up and the city starts to open up, um, that we can actually um, start to, I guess, yeah, see everything moving around. And the unfortunate thing is people can kind of get into the habit of, as everything starts to speed up, they just kind of just move with the tide and just kind of just move with everything else that's happening around them. So what we want to do is tonight kind of discuss some simple strategies and kind of what's going to happen and why we need to kind of focus on, all right, how scheduling is going to be really important to us as we start to transition into some level of normality, or this new norm that a lot of people are calling, is so we don't get swept up and this fail to plan does not become our plan to fail. Cool. So the background, as I mentioned before, the state's starting to open up. Priorities begin to change as well. So as gyms start to open up and we start to have conversations with people, starting to notice people becoming more aware of certain things. But I think people have become a really lack of self awareness during this time as well. They've kind of just let themselves go on the decline. It's like, I'll kind of worry about it later on, um, as things start to get better. So when things get better, they believe they're going to get better. Unfortunately, this is a real trap for a lot of people. Is as
Mm.
soon as you let your health decline over a short period of time, we're talking about a couple of months, it does become quite hard to come chase yourself out of this rabbit hole, because you dug yourself so deep for so long. Now you've got to kind of try and find a way to climb yourself back up to a normal state pre-COVID, in terms of your health and fitness. And this is where just doing some level of maintenance during this time and having some sort of consistency with your training, doesn't matter what it looks like, just kind of just allowing that wave to kind of wash over you in order for you to continue to move forward, or at least not trying to go backwards, with the tide with everyone else during this time. And I think planning is a very underrated skill for all ages. And I think it's really important to overemphasize this point because it's underemphasized in so many industries. In school, it's really underemphasized. I think university, it's really underemphasized. Our job, our workplace, is really underemphasized. Except for us, we're pretty good at it, but we can always improve here and there. But across the board, across a lot of industries, planning is the critical component that prevents us from failing at the end of the day. It's kind of like that insurance policy we set up. We do all the work on the front end. Then as we start to get through it and move through it and get to the back end of it, we're less likely to fall into have these pitfalls, or revert back into having all these negative habits that we've created during this time. And the origin of the fail to plan and plan to fail is actually Benjamin Franklin. So Benjamin Franklin had a bit of a PR crisis. I think it was back when he was president, for United States of America, and that's kind of like that original quote kind of came from. But obviously, it's a very broad quote that can be easily applied to any industry, to individuals, to small groups, organizations, countries, and nations, so on and so forth, because it literally encompasses, if you have zero plan, the likelihood of you failing is going to be so high, and the only person you got to look to be disappointed in is yourself for not doing the work on the front end to prevent all these things from happening in the first place. And I put this quote down here as well. So nothing worthwhile will be easy to attain. And I think this is really important for people to understand is, if we want to work to something, say we want to like pay rise or a promotion with our jobs, or we're looking for that bod or anything like that. It's it's something that's worthwhile to us, and it's not going to be easy at the end of the day. So we must make sure that we're planning, being consistent, scheduling, making sure that we're moving forward, or that allows us to move forward in the direction that we want to go. And if we do it for long enough, our brain chemistry begins to change. So therefore, our habit, we're more likely to form it as a habit, and we just do it. There's no argument about it. And this is the critical thing that people forget is we just need to stick at it for a certain period of time and be consistent and put a lot of energy and effort into it in the short term. And in the long term, it's just going to be a lot easier to maintain. And this is where people fall short is you've got to climb the mountain to get to the top, then coming down is a little bit easier. Why is planning for your training important? It shows your intent to develop yourself. I mean that physically and physically and personally, so mentally as well. Training itself can be laborious in nature, but it is a lifelong journey, and there's lots of ups and downs with our training, and a lot of these lessons and that we come across in terms of all of these setbacks with injuries and illness, we can apply those to our work and what we do. There's a direct correlation in terms of the work that we put into ourselves and that correlation into what we decide to do, whether it's our relationships or whether it's work related. Doesn't matter what it is. If we work on ourselves, we can use and develop those skills that we're working on ourselves and apply that to somewhere else in our lives. It also shows a sign of self-respect. And I think this is a real critical one for a lot of people is you respect yourself because you are the money maker. You are the person you need to look after first before you can start to serve others or work or anything like that. Because if you're not repairing yourself or developing yourself or making yourself robust, the work is just going to break you down no matter what. You're going to break down, you're going to feel crap, you're going to feel like garbage. You're not putting in any defensive mechanisms in order to look after yourself during this time. So definitely a big part when it comes to self-respect. And it's kind of links into the third point, selfishness before you can be selfless. You must first look after yourself before you serve others. How can I work in the fitness industry? And if I'm not training, at least 3 times a week, and I'm telling someone to train 3 times a week or at least 3 times a week, I'm essentially a hypocrite. I'm telling them what to say, but embodying what I'm actually saying. Then how can we serve others when you cannot properly look after yourself? And I think this goes back to that self point is it's like if, for example, say you're going to take financial advice from a financial advisor, but really they're on the brink of being bankrupt. They're probably not going to be the best person to get advice from. Same thing with personal trainer, strength coach. If someone's really overweight, using them for diet advice, you're not going to go to them. So you shouldn't even go to them when they're not actually taking on board what they're saying and they're not embodying in terms of what you're providing or what they're providing. Sorry. And it shows a willingness to address the hard issues head on. And a lot of people have really struggled, and it's been really difficult for a lot of people to train for various reasons. But for those who figure out a way to kind of work around a lot of these hurdles, it shows that they're willing to find solutions to get their training in, because they know that training is going to lead to something else. It's not like they just want to train. They know they don't particularly want to train, but they know the training itself, it's going to serve a purpose in the short term. They'll feel good after their training, but later on, it's going to help create some consistency, and that self-respect comes into play, and they're looking after themselves at the same time. So it's a big upside to investing in yourself in the training and planning for it. And those who fail to learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. And I think this is where planning becomes really important, because we can say that we want to lose weight or we want to put on some muscle mass, but if we're not planning those sessions in, we're not planning to get our sleep in at a certain time, or actually trying to get a certain amount of sleep or accrue a certain amount of sleep, is we're gonna continue to make these faults. We're doomed to repeat these failures. And that's why planning is really important. Is it prevents these failures from happening again, especially if you repeated it. So I see people who go on yo-yo diets, all that jazz, all the time, and they're doomed to repeat it because they really haven't planned to have the foresight in front to stop that from occurring again. What planning allows you to do, set your priorities loud and clear. So if you write it down, you schedule it out when you're going to do X, Y, and Z, it sets your priorities straight. It's pretty simple. It allows you to overcome any obstacles as well. I like this one because if you have something that pops up, say if you've scheduled to train between the two during the middle of the day and something pops up or something like that, it's like, and it's very time sensitive. It's like, okay, cool. You can move that time to still make sure that you're still looking after yourself for those 2 hours, but then get that thing done as well. So you can always accommodate. It doesn't have to be rigid. It can be flexible at the same time. It also allows you to take an inventory of the past wins and what has worked and hasn't worked. Just like mentioned before, those who fail to learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. I think this is really critical to take inventory of what has worked in terms of strategies that you've used to make it a habit, to make it a routine, to make progress, to get PRs, to make gains, whatever it is, put on weight, lose weight, whatever your goal is. It's definitely worthwhile to take inventory because then, say if something happens, you have a lapse or small lapse or something like that, you can just go back to the strategy that worked. It's pretty simple. And one thing I actually like is planning actually allows you to create spare time. So it forces you to be a lot more time efficient with what you do during the day. And at the end of the day, it actually gives you more time to do what you need to because you're not fluffing around. You're using your work time as work time, using your rest time as rest time, using your training time as training time. So you're not cutting into work time during your rest time, and you're not cutting into training time into your work time. So you're very clear, very concise, get to the point, and you're going to be more efficient with the way you work and operate on a daily basis. I'm going to play this video. Just let me know if you can hear it though. Oh no. Can you hear it? No.
No, I can't hear it.
Okay. So I had I'll explain it anyway. So I had this story of the rocks, pebbles, and the sand, and I think this is a really powerful way to focus on the priorities within our lives. So this can be easily Googled, and I'm probably just going to go straight to the point. So in this jar here, he's got the rocks, the pebbles, and the sand. And the jar represents the amount of time that you have, because time is a finite amount. You only have a certain amount of it, and it starts to go away, or even during the day as well. What the rocks represent are the most important things to us. So it might be family, it might be our health, it might be a few other things as well. The pebbles might actually represent our work, our social relationships. It could be a few other things as well, gardening, something like your hobbies. And the sand represents kind of like the actions that help you get to those actions specifically. So they kind of fill in the gaps. And I think it's really important is because you have such a finite amount of time during the day. I'm talking about trying to maximize your time. I'm talking about trying to prioritize your time. Is setting time towards your training, setting times towards making lunch, making dinner, doing your meal prep, making time to have half an hour before bed just to unwind. All these things help to focus on the priorities with what we do. And the pebbles in the sand complement the big rocks, and that's the cool part. It kind of it works well together. If we decided to fill the jar with pebbles and sand, our main priorities won't fit in there, and we're not going to make time to actually fit it in there as well. So this is where it's most important to make sure we always put the big rocks in first, then the pebbles, then the sand when it comes to prioritizing our day, our week, month, our year, so on and so forth. And like I mentioned before, health is really part of those big rocks. If we don't have our health, we just decline really quickly. And it's real, and especially during COVID, we're really seeing that. Hear stories of people putting on weight, conditions are flaring up that they've managed or self-managed during this pre-COVID. Um, and we've seen a decline in people's mental health as well. And this is where the emphasis on the big rocks will always need to be, putting it into our health. And you might have like family, could be job, depending on what your job entails or does take up a lot of time. Dreams, I think, is definitely important to spend time on your dreams as well, in order, because you want to work towards attaining that dream. And it also focusing on your health as one of the big rocks. It lays the foundation. So it really lays foundation. If anything negative happens, you've got good health in order to try and work your way through it. We see a lot of people, they're on shaky grounds with their health. They're unable to go to their doctor for whatever reason, or they have to do a telehealth. They can't go to the physiotherapist and they have to do a telehealth call. It's really important that health is always going to be the priority in whatever regard it may be. If we don't focus on our health, we're going to have to rely on other people, on other systems or other industries to um, help us with our health, because it's declined in some way. We need to seek it from somewhere else in order to help us to move forward. So I definitely believe the big rocks is our health at the end of the day. Now, how do we do this? I think this is, we talk about the philosophical stuff and kind of the results and all that jazz. But how do we do it on a day-to-day basis? It's actually quite simple. I think using a calendar of some sort, so whether it's paper diary or I'm teaching the guys to use Google Calendar, it really sets out your priorities and your intentions early, very early. And I like, especially with all the millennials, Gen X's, Gen Y's, uh, you and Gen Z's, using Google Calendar that reminds you as like a personal assistant for you to complete certain tasks. Whether it's a training session, you got a training session half an hour, it will notify you. You got to get ready for it. You got to get the right clothes on, get down to the gym, or if it's at home, you got to get ready, start warming up and get straight into that session. If you start early, great. If you start a little bit later, at least you've allocated the time to get the session done during that time. I still think there's value in having a paper diary. I have a paper, not so much a paper diary, but a paper, I don't know if you can't really see, but I have a notebook that I have for all my training programs that I complete each day. And that allows me to keep track and inventory of what I've actually completed. And that actually goes back a whole year as well. So it's really cool to see and reflect on the progress that you made, but you can also make modifications based on how you felt and what you've taken inventory of, say, based how hard the training session was, how your recovery's been, how your sleep's been, how's your food been, so on and so forth. Everything needs to be entered in. And I think this is really important. You can't just pick and choose the good and the bad and just be blasé about it. You must always put everything in. And it'd be surprising how fast you can actually fill these calendars up with what's actually going on, and take stock of what you're actually doing, because you might actually be wasting more time or you could be a lot more time efficient in what you do. And you could actually become more flexible in the way you spend your time as well. So you say you might be better at studying in the evenings. Okay, cool. So you're going to probably train during the day and maybe study in the evenings as a result, depending on where you are in your life. And prioritize your health, family, and well-being. I think it goes without saying. And sharpen the saw. So sharpening the saw is a philosophy or an idea where, if you want to cut down a tree, right, and you have a blunt blade, a blunt saw, and you're trying to cut it, and it's not really going anywhere. You're expending a lot of energy into it, and you're wasting a lot of time. Where this more effective way would have actually been to sharpen the blade first before actually cutting it down. It requires more work and more time on the front end, but to actually cut down the tree, it's actually a lot easier. So this is where the sharpening the blade component is actually the planning, becoming more time efficient when it actually comes to doing X, Y, and Z tasks, or to talk to whoever whatever is going on. The chopping of the tree or the cutting of the tree is doing what needs to be done at that time. So rather than you trying to figure it out what you need to do at the time where things should be done, it's all pre-done. It's all done on the weekend. It's all done a week before, a month before, whatever it may be. And I think this sharpen the saw idea, Stevie Covey, is a really good principle that anyone can apply, especially when it comes to their training sessions, pre-season. I think is a really good one for young kids as well. Physical preparation needs to happen early, and sharpening the saw so they're absolutely dangerous on the field in a positive way. It's going to lead them in the right direction in terms of success or being able to attain their goal of what they're trying to achieve. That's it.
Right. Where do you want me to start?
Where do you want to start?
I'll start at the beginning. Well done. You've obviously learned that from me, and thank you very much. It's good to see. It reminded me too when you said back your workouts, your spiral notebook for workouts. It's something I used to do when I worked in the industry. I used to many years ago, teach aerobics back in the day. You might be doing 4 or 5 classes a week. I wrote everything down so I knew exactly what I was doing for that specific thing, So I thought that's what that reminded me of. I don't need to these days because I've got my workouts all planned out and that. But the other thing was self-respect, taking care of yourself. So true. That's what it's all about. How you present, how you look, the whole scenario shows whether you respect yourself or not. No doubt about it. I was going to say and you can even bring that onto your environment too. Mess, clutter, the whole thing. It all adds to the, how your car is, the whole lot. It's all part of it. Sharpen the saw. So that little story I used to use because my background, I am actually a productivity specialist, time management, all that sort of stuff. The story was once upon a time there was a woodcutter who earned his living chopping trees in the forest from morning till night, 7 days a week. And he couldn't understand why he was working so long and so hard. And then one day, one of the other woodcutters come up to him and said, woodcutter, why don't you take time out to sharpen your saw? And he said, I'm too busy. I don't have the time. And that's how a lot of people are, unfortunately. They don't take the time out. When they do, they're going to be far more productive at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's what I wrote down.
That's a good one.
My input.
Yeah. It's good. Nathan?
Yeah, definitely agree with those points, Lorraine. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't plan. And I've definitely seen, the benefits of planning. And as you've mentioned in this presentation, that it's just there's too many benefits. And yeah, you are doing a disservice if you don't plan. And then the second thing is, when you do plan, you do have more time. I like that point, because you do, instead of fluffing around or, having no direction, you can actually, plan yourself something. It's like, oh, I'm doing this for 2 hours. And if you commit yourself to do that, and then right after, you can do whatever you want, you know what I mean? Rather than kind of just fluffing around doing half, like, just be fully present with what you've planned. And then when you do have that free time, you don't have to stress about anything. You kind of just there, you've got that free time, you can do whatever you want, and you're not stressing about something else. So yeah, no, good presentation.
Thanks. Karen.
And Hayden.
Hey. He
didn't know the passcode, so he's been sitting in with me.
Oh, well done.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm the age of the diary, the monthly calendar, the writing everything down. As a family, we have always had the monthly calendar, so everyone can go to it to see what we're doing as a family and who's going where, doing what. You just have to plan. I think they say, what is it, 80% planning and 20% execution. And no matter what technology throws at you, it's still exactly the same. And it just gives you peace of mind that you're under control. And then as when you get out of control, well, you just have to look at your diary and cut things, change things, do things that are a priority, whether it be for family or yourself, not for other people, and go from there. And then once you get back into the groove of things, definitely, you can do things for other people. But looking after yourself is number one. And, feeling good mentally and physically is key. And I think feeling physically well brings mental health. It makes mental health so much easier, and it just happens, really. So yeah, it was great. I've had Hayden sitting here going, yeah, he's right. Yeah. So hopefully as a mother, I've done the right thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hayden, what are your thoughts?
Well, back to what Mum said with the new technology, I find that typing stuff down doesn't really get it through. Writing it down is a lot better. So I've started to do that a lot more. Like with my gym program, I actually write it down on paper now and take that down with me. It's a lot easier, and it's in my head now.
It's good. I think you got to also look at the flip side as well. So you want technology to work to your advantage. So obviously technology allows us to communicate, and it allows us, for me, to submit the programs a lot faster and show you what needs to be done as well. Obviously, because we're not face to face. And I think it's really a good point that, writing down, it can be important, but you don't want writing down things to clog up what's happening here. You don't want it to be the main thing you focus on, is your processing. So the way I use Google Calendar is a set and forget system. So so whatever pops up, say if I got a call tomorrow at 11 o'clock or something like that, I put it in the system, put it in Google. Lovely thing about Google. With it's 9:30. I'll get a for Karen, right? I'll get a reminder at 9 o'clock that I've got a call with Karen at 9:30. It's a set and forget system, because it acts as like your personal assistant. So there's a time and place for certain technologies.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks. I've also found too, many people I've worked with, I understand what you're saying, and I utilize a bit of both, but I find that a lot of people just have to have the paper diary. And the reality is, most people don't plan. They don't even have a paper diary, or they've got the calendar, and everything pops up all at the same time, and there's no actual planning out of the activity. So, it is a bit of different strokes for different folks, but you've got to do one or the other. And if you're doing none of them, well, your life's going to be a mess.
Yeah. And here's us with my whiteboard. That
Yeah.
whiteboard,
It's just reading.
that's my apartment whiteboard. I have my other whiteboard for staff downstairs. I have my personal whiteboard in Melbourne. I have whiteboards everywhere as well. But it's just downloading information, and you have to do it quickly. And if I throw it down on the whiteboard behind me here, it's out of mind, and I can just refer to it and I don't worry about it. And it just makes you more organised and more, it just helps with everything, particularly when you're really busy. A busy person is more organised than a not busy person. And that's the problem we've had with COVID. We're not busy, so we're a bit out of control, really, I think, and a bit cruisy. But yeah, it is. Find out what suits you and run with it.
Well, not being busy means that you can go, oh, I can just do that later. You don't actually set a time to it, and you don't stick to the time, or you should be sticking to the time, but a lot of the time you find that you can actually just reallocate it. And then sometimes you go, oh, I haven't done that today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you just keep putting it off.
Self-respect, right there. Don't respect your time. You don't value your time.
Yeah.
That's good. Dave.
Yeah, a lot of things to say actually, but no, all really good points. We'll move on. But yeah, I guess for us young fellas and gals, if you're watching this on the replay,
The over 50s.
yeah, like what do we have on us almost 24/7? Our phones, right? So we can instantly access our calendar. So we have a laptop, phone, and even like a digital smartwatch. Like I've got an Apple Watch. You might have a Garmin or a Fitbit. On some of the more advanced models, you can still access your calendar. Like I can access my calendar on my Apple Watch. So it's really easy and less stressful to think about what you're going to do next or what they've got on for the day or tomorrow. You can easily just jump on your phone and say, oh, yep, tomorrow I've got 3 events on. At this time I've got it's like the five or six P's, like piss poor. The preparation prevents piss poor performance. So follow the P's, and yeah, a good day, I believe, is always dictated by what you do the night before. If you prepare the night before, you wake up, you've served yourself first because you've looked after yourself, but there's less decisions to make. And leading into that conversation, hypothetical question: is it stressful to make one decision? Probably not. Is it stressful to make 5 decisions? Is it more or less stressful? Probably more stressful. If you have to make 20 decisions in 5 minutes, that's probably really, really, really stressful. So it goes to show that all decision making just goes into your planning. And so the less decisions you have to make, the less stressful. So it might be, if you know you got to train in the morning, okay, what decisions are involved? Okay, what time am I going to wake up? What am I going to wear? What am I going to drink before? Where am I going to train? If you can eliminate every decision-making piece, then you're sorted. So, yeah. So if you know that you're gonna, like, I'm struggling with this now, but if commuting is my big thing. So I need to know when I need to leave to go to something, because commuting is a big part. So set a time so when you know you have to leave. But the onus is, yeah, the less decisions you have to make, the better. And that comes down into planning. And
I think oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think that was a really good point. All decisions made are in the planning.
Yeah. So less decisions you have to make, the better. And yeah, I think it's just good for relieving anxiety, because you're like, oh crap, I gotta think about all the things I gotta do. Oh no, can you remember 10 things, but you're probably gonna remember 3 or 4 of those things that I've given to you. So I think the study testing, memory retaining whatever it is. But yeah, it turns out people could only remember 3 or 4 of what they were presented with. And so we only are able to access about 30 to 40% of our memory storage capacity of what we're given in terms of information. So yeah, like the set and forget thing, just put it down somewhere, email, planner, notes. That way you might remember 3 of those things, but you've forgotten about 3 or 6, I'd say the 6 or 7 other things that you've forgotten about. They're also important. So yeah, that's all from me. I guess yeah, big statement is less decisions you have to make, the better.
Cool. So in terms of what's happening from here, next week is going to be an information session. So we're going to be kind of walking everyone through our new app in terms of booking sessions in when we're at the facility, and be able to update payment details and a few other functionalities. And we're also going to inform everyone just kind of how everything is going to operate in the layout of the car park, enabling everyone to be able to train at the facility. Obviously, weather's not supposed to be really good this spring, but we're going to try and do as much as we can to try and mitigate the damage during that time, because we want to make sure everyone has a safe place to train. I think that's the critical part. Not everyone's had a safe place to be able to physically exercise, and not everyone has had the support around them to be able to train as well. So we've definitely noticed that over the last 6 months. Anything else, Mum?
I think, and to get people on, a good goal would be to, you have people well on track by Christmas.
That's it.
And we'll be looking back at this recording and saying, oh my God, did we really go through all that?
Pretty much. Let's get out of here.
Okay, coffee chat on Sunday?
Yeah, coffee chat on Sunday. I can't remember what the topic is.
Neither can I, but it doesn't matter. It'd be great. What's that?
What was it?
I don't know. I'll have to have a look up on the Facebook group. Yeah.
Oh, we're so over this, aren't we?
Too much. Yeah, too much.
No.
All right, guys, I'm going to go now.
Yeah,
talk to you soon. Bye. Bye, Hayden. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Enjoy.